as we get to the end of the Venus sequence, we're talking about our core. This is where our core wound becomes our core stability, which then leads into the Pearl sequence and literally becomes our vocation and prosperity. I'm feeling this one today. I have a second gene key in my core, which is the divine feminine. It's the wound of dislocation and the gift of orientation. So this shadow is like divine feminine wounding of feeling overpowered and thus dislocated by the masculine. And what I mean by that is cut off from my intuition by virtue of living in a very left-brained, masculine-dominated world. Thanks for being here. I'm Molly, and you're watching Mirror Readings. Let's get into the lines of our core. And again, the lines are how we move from shadow to gift frequency and magnetize what we want instead of repelling it, which is what happens in shadow. Something to consider when looking at your core in relation to the Venus sequence is that this is a wound that feeds off interaction. Like in the shadow state of our wounding, it's important to look at how this wound plays with the wounds of whoever we're in close relationship with. The final step in the Venus sequence is to embrace this wound. It's to love it without trying to fix it, which naturally brings us from the shadow to the gift frequency. Line 1, if you've been following any of my other videos on the lines, is a very solo journey. And in this case, in your core, line 1 is repression and honesty, and it's about self-honesty. So if you have a first line wound, then you tend to internalize your emotions. And for this reason, people with first line wounds may find it very challenging to express their feelings to others. And yes, expressing your feelings to others is very helpful, but it starts with being honest with yourself. Because if you're in integrity with yourself as a first line, expressing your feelings to others, unless it's necessary, like for the connection, it's not essential for you. But you have to look into your life. You have to feel that shadow because you're designed to repress it, right? We don't want to feel the things that we don't want to feel. And in order for us to transmute the shadow state of our wounding, we have to embrace that wound. We have to just feel it. And if you're conditioned to repress those negative feelings, you have to become more aware of them as like a background state of being. So take a look at that shadow in your core and just remember that as long as you don't lie to yourself, you're gonna be good. You enter the gift frequency as soon as you embrace that wounding of your shadow. Something else to remember as we're talking through the lines is that our core wounding is what connects us to people. We cannot empathize with the experience of others and their wounds without contemplating our own wounds. So, line 2 is denial and ease. So line 2 is in shadow state. Y'all have a very deep capacity for denial. And denial is always looking outwards, projecting onto others. And this is a coping mechanism for having overwhelming emotions that you have a hard time dealing with. So it's just easier to deny them or deny the reality of the situation and project our false truth onto others. But once you can see your own denial, again, it's about embracing the shadow states. You're looking for where you are denying the shadow of whatever gene key you have in your core. And once you bear witness to it, you're already entering the gift frequency. Your life can have a deep rhythm and sense of ease, like more so than any of the other lines. But there's an anger that can sometimes well up inside you that needs to be expressed creatively. So once you witness the denial, you find a channel for your anger, you're already in the gift frequency, and life becomes so easy. Lucky you. Per usual, line 3s love a good external distraction. So third line is shame and humor. And if you have a third line wound, then you're probably going to seek a lot of distraction from the pain that you feel. And line 3s carry a certain amount of collective shame for all of humanity. Like, how could human beings wreck the planet? How could we kill each other? y'all might subconsciously be feeling this type of shit very, very deeply. So many third lines are very obsessive in how y'all approach life. You're running away from that sense of shame that you feel in the shadow state. So look at where in your gene key that's in your core, you might be feeling ashamed of that shadow. The easiest way for line 3s to access their gift is to slow down. And as y'all move from the shadow to the gift, you're gonna access a deep cosmic sense of humor. This isn't the type of like surface level humor that deflects from shame. It's the type that comes from a very deep intimacy with yourself and an understanding of your place in the circle of life. At a certain point, we kind of have to laugh at the horrors us humans have wrought upon our planet and each other and all of life, really. And you, out of all the lines, have the greatest capacity to embody that sense of humor and lighten others up. Line 4 is rejection and gentleness. And oftentimes in shadow state, line 4 will try to reject someone so that they don't get rejected. And the result can be a very isolated life. So the 4th line wound is all about armor. Because we fear rejection, we learn to armor our hearts to protect ourselves from deep-seated pain. But ultimately, that cuts us off from love, and it cuts us off from prosperity, right? Because our core connects the Venus sequence and the pearl, which is connected to our prosperity and how we fit into society. So if you have a 4th line wound, rejection can be a very subtle thing. It can present as like judgment or even meanness. So watch for the ways that you might be in rejection without realizing it. 4th lines access their core gift by being gentle with themselves, being gentle with others. Any opportunity to express gentleness will soften the heart of a 4th line and instantly bring them into their gifts. The more adept you become as a 4th line of melting your own armor, the easier you're going to find relationships. And you have an extraordinary ability to convey love through gentleness. So please, get on it, 4th lines. Line 5, as usual, you guys are so complicated and powerful. So 5th line is guilt and forgiveness. And line 5s operate on the frequency of power. So in a shadow state, line 5s are filtering their wounds through that theme of wanting to hold power over people, and it's very difficult to keep the peace in your relationships for very long. So look at the shadow of your core, whatever gene key you have there, and think about how it relates to power and how you express power. Because many 5th lines can end up giving up on relationships altogether because y'all just can't keep the peace when you're in that shadow frequency. The easiest way to access the gift and stabilize it is to forgive the unforgivable. And that can be anything, but you as a 5th line, you're the most powerful. If you watched any of my other videos on the lines, you already know this. Over and over again in the lives of line 5s, y'all are gonna be presented with the opportunity to forgive others for deeds that most consider unforgivable. That's your hack. Take it. And finally, line 6, separation and care. This is my line, and I can definitely relate to the shadow tendency to feel isolated and like I'm out here and the world is over here. This is also just the illusion of being in form, is seeing ourselves as separate when really when we're out of this individuated experience of consciousness, we all go back to unity consciousness and party together. Us 6th lines have to recognize our own control drama that we play out through being aloof. And it can be quite a process. We're typically hypersensitive children that grow up into hypersensitive adults and then don't want to admit that or be vulnerable, so we become aloof. The reawakening of the 6th line takes time, and it requires us to get back into that state of childlike wonder. Every other node in the Venus sequence has to do with our relationship with others, but our core has to do with our relationship with ourselves and how that informs our relationship with others. So as a 6th line, we have to learn to care for the world and the planet, and above all else, ourselves, and see that we have so much to give. We have to bring ourselves back into the world, and it starts with embracing that control drama of aloofness. So I have the second shadow of dislocation. So if I feel dislocated by the world, like everyone else is operating one way and it's totally against my nature, it's very easy for me to become a victim and isolate and see myself as being separate. But I bring myself back through the gift of orientation. Like, what can I orient to? Nature, certain communities, certain relationships. Like, I have the ability to reorient myself, but it doesn't come from somebody else pulling me out of my aloofness. I have to bring myself back into the world. It's a whole thing, dude. The whole fucking thing. But we're out here, we're doing it, and I'm very proud of us. So thanks for watching Mirror Readings. I'm Molly, and if you'd like to get a Gene Key reading with me, please visit my website, mirrorreadings.com. Subscribe to this channel to save 15% on all my offerings, and if you have questions, email me, mirrorreadings@gmail.com. Thanks for being here.